I feel like it's been forever since we've seen each other. Maybe like the last time we were both at Chris's together or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
It's been a while. Chris's or maybe the Hamburg show.
Yeah, I think I haven't been at Hamburg in so long. It was probably Chris's, to be honest. And then when Emily and Kevin said they were just down to Hamburg and saw you, I was like, the last one at Hamburg too.
Yeah.
The last one, man. That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So we're live, I guess.
Yeah, we're live. Yeah, but it's weird. We do this informal start, and then we do the rollout and get started on everything. So it's a little weird and unorthodox, but it works for us. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also about getting the viewers in there because some people they get the notification we go live and they just start rolling in, and so it gives us a few minutes to build an audience.
We've
got our first comment.
There's a method. There's a method to the madness. Steve always puts thought into everything.
Gotcha. No, this is cool.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Like,
hey, no problem.
Awesome. Really awesome. And it's always nice when you have a guest who you know really well too. So normally I come in with like a whole written list of things I want to touch on, but I've got it all right here, pal.
All right. Good.
So.
It was nice getting a chance to meet you in person too.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, Kevin's not here tonight. His daughter's not feeling well, so I know he'll be bummed he missed this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lame.
I thought we were gonna schedule it for much further out, but Anthony said you had a spot tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We can always do further out too.
Yeah,
it's true.
Cool.
We'll get you on the books right now.
It's true. We had someone else we were talking to. Sometimes they fall through kind of last minute. So
I got you.
Yeah. So anyway, that may or may not be what happened here. So
on the right here, these are just people that are joining, I guess, right?
Yeah. That's our live audience, and just in those 2 minutes, we've shot up to a few handfuls worth of viewers already. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, so anything goes on our end, but obviously if I touch on anything that I want to be very tactful about the way that we approach certain things. Like, I don't like I think like Eric Good is a subject that is going to come up at some point. I want to give the opportunity to touch on that, but I also want to be really respectful that Eric's not here and not because it's like they were talking about him at TTPG again, and obviously the Lizard King or whatever that documentary with Tom Crutchfield's going to come out. So that's something I want to touch on, but I also want to just preface that by saying like, we could be respectful here, and I don't want you to talk about anything that you're not comfortable with.
No, I'm an open book, and I'll be honest. And if there's something I don't want to talk about, I'll just say let's move on.
Exactly, and that's what I want to hear. So that's cool. So that'll be good. I think it'll be great. Yeah? And that was purposely placed there so that we hook them in with the drama,
Gotcha.
When is the Lizard King coming out?
Reality TV. Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So it's already, but it's not. That's not the title, but yeah, we bought the rights to books to do that. But it's the title. It's a working title. I don't know the actual title, and if I did, I wouldn't reveal it now. Anyway, I'll let HBO do that. But it's been sold to HBO. HBO definitely has purchased it and will be airing it sometime in 2024. But there is another movie another series that's coming out before the reptile one. Eric thought he was going to put out the reptile one, but they just finished the final edits on this one about primates. Now, you remember the Tiger King, anyone who's seen that, with Joe Exotic, he was just such a character. And we had to, Eric, when he met Joe, he said he had to do something with that guy because he was just too much of a character. And so that he found a similar character that is into primates, and it's a woman. And I'm not going to give too many details, but this woman is, she's just as crazy as Joe Exotic. And he went and he filmed her and filmed her primate collection and the whole, and all these people that, keep primates throughout the country. So he went into that into in depth. HBO loved it. They picked it up. and HBO is going to air that first. It's coming out pretty quick. The Monkey Queen. There you go. Yeah, it's coming out pretty soon.
That's so good.
Yeah, and
Steve,
that's a good title. That's a
Steve,
good title.
we should cue the roll in. Let's do it because this is too good. This is too good to leave this as free. Let's go. We're here.
Welcome to the Pondcast, the destination for insightful discussions and interviews on the appreciation, conservation, and husbandry of reptiles, with a focus on turtles and tortoises. Now, let's join our team of turtle nerds.
Ooh, really doing it. There we go. Now it's official. Steve's gone. Okay, he's back. Welcome everyone to episode 106 of the Pondcast. We're coming up on 11 years straight of doing this. And obviously, maybe there's some months that were less productive than others, but if you're doing the math and trying to figure out how 106 episodes computes to 11 years, but that's okay. So about 10 episodes. About 10 episodes.
Yeah, 9.5 to 10. Yeah, 9 to 10 episodes a year, basically. Right? Those are average. So
Steve likes math. I like math too. Not as much as Steve does, though. But we're here. We're real excited to have with us our esteemed guest, Mr. Maurice Rodrigues with an S. I maybe put a Z when I just wrote it out because there's certain people that you know kind of well, and you're just like, I don't have to check how to spell Maurice's name. I know how to spell his name. I know Maurice. So that happened. But Kevin won't be joining us today. He's got a sick child at home. But Steve is here, of course, and he's on camera. Hi, Steve. And Emily's here. Hi guys. So this is great. And we should preface, we did talk about it a little bit before the roll, and we have like that kind of loose time where we just kind of shoot the you know what, and this conversation was getting real hot and heavy real fast. So we decided to just roll the intro and get started. But just a little bit of housekeeping there. You know, Emily and Kevin saw Maurice. I saw Maurice 8 days ago. I was with Maurice, and then you guys saw him at the Hamburg show 2 days ago, and we're like, hey, Maurice, we should have you on the show. And then Maurice called me, I think later that day, and I was like, we had someone fall through for the show that we had, and we were just going to do one that's just us. And Maurice was gracious enough to just join us on no notice. So thank you, sir. And thank you for being, I just want to say this too. I just want to call this out. There are certain people within this world of ours, and Emily and I were talking about before you came on, Mo, that like we don't call it a hobby. It's more than a hobby. It's life's work. It's a calling. It's more than that. So within this lifestyle that we've chosen, that are just special. So you're one of those people that is just so kind. My wife likes very few people. She loves Maurice. Like I'll just put that out there. And no offense to anyone else, but I just want to throw that out there that you're one of the few people, we talk about Michael T. We talk about Cameron a lot. People like this that will like give you the shirt off their back if you need it and are complete, like no ego, no. And I'm guilty of not being that way myself. So anyway,
I appreciate that.
One of the great ones. Thank you.
I try to be nice to everyone. I try to, educate people because I'm always hungry for knowledge. So what I don't like are people that are kind of know-it-alls. They think they know everything. And I'm 53 years old. I've been doing this since I was 5, and I don't know anything. Every day I learn something new about turtles, and I can go to your collection or Chris Leone's or someone and be blown away by things that I can learn. And there are people out there that think, like I said, they think they know everything, but you don't. There's so much left to learn, so much that all of us need to learn. So I appreciate you guys too. I appreciate you having me on here. This is kind of fun. I've done one of these before, the Chelonian cast, and that was kind of fun. So I'm glad to be on here, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and the Chelonian cast is one of ours as well. I can't take credit for it. Michael and the gang, they do everything, but it is a endeavor that the Turtle Room supports. Is that right, Steve? I'm not making that up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's. I mean, their homepage is our website, is on our website and stuff. So yeah. Okay. Michael today about Colonia Cast stuff. So yeah,
he's doing a great job. They're doing such a great job. So it's great that you did that.
Smart kids.
Absolutely.
That's what I love about them. Like, they're super eager. I took them out in the field here in New Jersey, and I've been out with them, and they're just really, really brilliant kids. And I think they have a big future ahead of them in the turtle world, at least.
Oh, for sure. I agree. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure I was saying that right. We should. Well, they had me on, and we've had Michael on, but yeah, maybe it's time to do something where we come together. Their show, because they're so brilliant, they are literally brilliant. Their show is very much scientific, and they have a certain level of guest on in terms of that, and the amount of knowledge shared on their podcast far surpasses. In a year, they far surpassed everything in our 11 years that we've had on ours. Knowledge.
Wait, so what am I getting into here?
Like, we try to have fun. We try to have fun.
I'm just gonna throw this out there. They don't have full-time jobs, so the prep they can do.
Yeah. I get it.
Wow.
I was just talking to Michael today, and he said there was for one guest, he thought he had read like 16 hours worth of papers preparing, and I'm like, where do you find the time?
Yeah,
but that shows you right there. I mean, that makes that one of the most organized reptile podcasts in existence, and we are certainly nowhere near in the top 25 of that. And there's only so many, but yeah. That's crazy. But it shows in there. You see the preparation, and you see it in the final product. So, I mean, our goal has always been to kind of make it more fun, to bring people like yourself who are really knowledgeable, but have a fun time with it, and just share in the excitement and appreciation of these animals. So anyway, so we're doing that.
So Maurice, when we saw you, we actually were 2 aisles over, and I was mid-sentence, and Kevin just cut me off, and he's like, oh my gosh, I know him. That's Maurice. And I was just like, I'm sorry, what? And this vendor we were standing in front of, I and the vendor both thought Kevin was talking about the vendor. And so he was looking like this, and I was like, and then he just grabbed my arm and he dragged me over, and he was like, we are going to wait. But you were on the phone. So I don't know if you saw, we were circling like sharks behind you.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. So the second you hung up, we went in. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Anthony, on that note.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if Maurice was there at the time.
No.
Has Emily ever heard the story of when Anthony introduced himself to Eric Good at Hamburg?
Probably. None of you guys recognized him, because now that was at a time when
that was
it was different. Like, you'd have to watch the videos on YouTube at that time. So, and I've always taken pride in being a student of the game, but nobody knew who the heck Eric Good was except me. And I've
never been a recognized stars with faces kind of thing anyway. Like, if I meet them, whatever, but
Yeah. but I was real excited to see him. I went up, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I think I told you this, Mo. I think I told you this story, but I was like, oh my gosh, I love your work, like everything you do. And he's like, what work? And I was like, wait a minute, you're Eric, right? And he was like, yeah. It was just so weird, because I was like, oh my gosh, you're the best. He was probably just, here's this, 6'8" hairy guy coming up to you, like in your face, but I was just really excited to meet him.
Then. You were still 6'9" then. Let's be honest.
I hadn't lost an inch yet. I appreciate you for that. Yeah, but it was real awkward, and it was at Hamburg. And I think this is a good call out anyway too. We still haven't talked about who Maurice is, so forgive us, Mo. But just Hamburg in general. This was the last Hamburg show.
Yeah, that's why I went.
Yeah, Steve and I met at the Hamburg show. I met Eric there. Maurice, we've gone together before. Well, we didn't drive together, but we met there before and hung out. So that's kind of an end of an era. Do you know, Maurice, when the first time you went to Hamburg was? How long ago was that?
Oh my God. I've been going to the Hamburg show since the 80s.
Wow.
My best friend, maybe some people out there might know, was in the fish business. His name was George Shea. who unfortunately passed in 2006. But he worked and was part owner of a company called International Pet, and they imported mostly fish, but sometimes reptiles. In fact, many people have gotten turtles from them in back in the day in the 80s when it was just like the Wild West of importing turtles. He would bring in the owner there, John Lombardo, if anyone knows that name. He even has some fish named after him, Lombardi, some African cichlids. So John would bring in shipments of Egyptian tortoises, $8 a piece. Baby, I remember he would get in little hatchling matamatas for like $10 a piece back in the 80s. But a star tortoise was still $500.
Right.
Okay, this is in the 80s. But yeah, a lot of stuff. I remember times when I went there and they had giant matamatas, like really the big ones that we see at Bill McCord's, Anthony. Those were really expensive even back then. So yeah, he worked at this place, and now and then we'd go to these shows. He'd take me to them. And I, because of him, I went to Hamburg, White Plains, a bunch of places back in the 80s. We started. I'm 53, so I started driving in 87. When I was 17 in New Jersey, you can get your driver's license when you were 17 back then. And he was a year younger than me, so I was in charge of driving everywhere. I think I would say back in 1987 was the first time.
Wow, 17, isn't that old? I feel like in Connecticut 16, or did they raise it?
Different states, different ages, but Jersey
is it 18 in Jersey now?
It's 18 now, correct?
Wow, who knew?
Yeah,
no idea. Wow, high school kids aren't even really driving in Jersey until they're almost graduated.
Yeah, my sons, my three sons had to wait till we're 18. Yeah.
Wow, I was I was at college when I was 17.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I had just turned 18 right before college started, but yeah. I was 17 when I graduated high school. Huh.
Wow. Cool. Now, Maurice, I haven't given you like an introduction, so I want to do that too before we go too far here. Okay. But Maurice is a co-founder, along with John Baylor, an absolute legend in the turtle world, and also Eric Good, an absolute legend in the world now at this point. And we'll talk more about that. We were doing that before we came on, but so you're co-founder. Can you tell us a little bit about how that started and what those conversations were like? Wow. And when? I don't even know when the Turtle Conservancy really, like the conversations before it took place, started.
So I had just, some of you might know that I was working, let's see, how do I start this? Okay. I had just gotten out of a partnership with the Tewksbury Institute of Herpetology, if anyone heard that. Richard Ogus, that name people know in the turtle business. So this crazy guy had a huge collection in New York City. I helped him do all the filtration, but the plan was to move that entire collection to, in fact, my family's farm here in New Jersey, in Tewksbury. I'm actually here now, my mom's house. And that's a whole different story. I still am kind of homeless right now. We can get into that later. So my parents had this 50 acres. We were going to move this whole collection over here. And then I got John Baylor involved with the Tewksbury Institute of Herpetology. He became also one of the board members of the Tewksbury Institute. So we talked, obviously a lot about turtles. And even before that, I worked at the Bronx Zoo. I was an unpaid intern for several years, many years. And then I became a paid intern at the Bronx Zoo just until finally, there was a point where I was working 3 days a week paid at the Bronx and 3 days a week at another company. I had just gotten married and I had to make a choice. Do I stay in the zoo field or do I go to work at the Bronx or at this other company? And I just got married, and I remember I'm rambling here, but I remember the other company, this company called Laminco, offered me twice the salary as the zoo did, and of course I wanted the zoo job, but my wife that I just got married, she's like, "I'll kill you if you take that job." So, it was literally twice the amount of money, and I wanted it. I was like, "Yeah, no problem, I'll take it." So always thinking about turtles first, right? So then at that point, I left the zoo.
Can I just interject just for a second, Mo? So when he talks about that Tewksbury Institute and Richard Ogus, we're talking about the documentary, The Chances of the World Changing, which is something we've talked about many times here on the podcast over the years. So if you're looking to really see that story in depth, check out that documentary. It is at times gut-wrenching, but also just know that like Maurice was intimately involved in that entire process. You're not on camera, right? I don't remember seeing you.
Not a single time on camera.
Chris Hagen is, Bill Mullen is. Anyone else that I'm forgetting?
Oh, I don't even know. My relationship with Richard ended very badly. So he did not put me in anything. And even though I volunteered, all that work I did for him was as a volunteer. I spent thousands of hours of my own time and money. Anyway, don't even get into that. So with the zoo, working with John Baylor at the Bronx Zoo, then again with the Tewksbury, he knew that I was super passionate, that I was just not one of these interns that are like, fly by night. They come, because we had a lot of that at the Bronx Zoo. You'd have an intern work even a year or two and then leave, and then you never hear about him again, especially not in the turtle world. But John knew I was somehow going to be involved in turtles no matter what. So after leaving the Bronx, after the Tewksbury Institute kind of failing, then immediately after that I went to work for Eric Good. So Eric Good hired me. I became his director of operations for the Maritime Hotel in the city. I managed his hotel and restaurants and nightclubs, which were the craziest thing ever. I had no experience, and I'm here running these giant nightclubs that have 2,000 people show up.
And I know you have skills, but this is because you like turtles. Like he knows you through turtles, and he recognizes your skill, but really this all happened because he knows you because turtles. You're both into turtles.
It had nothing to do with anything. I had when he hired me, I've never worked in a restaurant in my life, not even as a server. I'd never worked in a nightclub. I didn't even go to nightclubs, but he trusted me.
Right.
Saw that it was a little bit smart, and he handed me the keys to this giant $50 million a year operation. I mean, the hotel with the nightclubs and restaurants were generating about $50 million a year at that time. So anyway, so while working for him, all we did was talk about turtles. That's all we did. In fact, I'll get into a little story about my first week at work at the Maritime Hotel with Eric Good. I get to my office. It's a tiny little office in the basement of the hotel. And I'm just like getting, when you get into your office, you're just setting it up. You're getting your pencils, you're getting some paper, you're getting whatever. I'm sitting there setting up the office. Eric jumps in and he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean I'm doing? I'm setting up the office, getting ready to work for you, Eric." He's like, "No, we're going to Miami." I said, "What?" I said, this is like my first week. He's like, "No, I got plane tickets. We're going to Miami." So I go home that day. I tell my wife, it's part of my job. I got to go to Miami. What can I say? We fly to Miami. He puts me up in a penthouse suite at the Raleigh Hotel. He's in another penthouse. And it was just crazy. We were treated like royalty. He knew every single person at the hotel. And then I find out the reason why he flew me to Miami is because it was the Daytona Reptile Show was that week. So he wanted to fly to Miami, meet some people, talk about hotel stuff, but then drive up back home through Daytona so we can go to the show together. That was the whole reason. So it was just crazy. So that's my first week of work there. So we go. So as I'm working for him, the whole situation with the Bronx Zoo happens in St. Catharines Island. People that are on this podcast might know that Bronx Zoo had this huge collection of turtles and tortoises on this island off the coast of Georgia called St. Catharines Island. They had a 30-year lease with the family. I believe it's the Wrigley family, the Wrigley gum. They own this island, so this very wealthy family. But it turns out that they weren't going to renew the lease. Where the Bronx Zoo, or WCS, they were expecting that lease to automatically renew. They had no inclination that the family was going to say, "Hey, you know what? Let's not do another 30 years with them." So John Baylor calls me, out of all people. He knew I was still passionate. We were still always communicating with email. He calls me and he goes, "Maurice, I know you're working with Eric now. I know he's very wealthy, and I know he has land in California. And it just so happens most of the tortoises we have on St. Catharines would do very well in that Mediterranean climate of California. In fact, he thought they would do better than they were in St. Catharines, because it's very, hot and humid. And yeah. And in fact, some of the tortoises on the island all had, not all of them, many had shell rot issues because of the humidity. Anyway, so he contacts me and he says, "Do you think, Eric would be interested?" And of course, I'm working with Eric every day. We see each other all day long, and all we do is talk about business or turtles, either one. And I talked to Eric about it, and Eric's like, "Yeah, set up a dinner, and let's talk about it." So I set up a dinner with John Baylor, Bill Holmstrom, another legend in the turtle world. He's now retired. He was the collections manager at the Bronx Zoo. It was myself and Eric at Matsuri Restaurant, one of the restaurants at the hotel. And at that meeting right there, we kind of hatched out a plan to form, the Turtle Conservancy, which originally wasn't called that. It was called the Chelonian Conservation Center. We changed the name a few times, but what is now the Turtle Conservancy. So we decided, to take the whole collection out to California, which we did. So,
well, around what year was that those animals went to? And that they went to Ojai then, right?
They went to Ojai. So in 2004, we had that dinner, and then we started a plan. I would fly out to California with Eric, and we began to build everything, because we didn't have. It was we're talking about a 1.2 acre property. It had a pool house, a main house, and a pool, and there were nothing for turtles. So we had to build all these rock walls. We had to build a greenhouse. We had to build tortoise houses. So we were like frantic. Eric would fly out once a month. I would go out maybe every quarter, and literally go out there and work on. I was doing electrical work, plumbing. I was going to the creek to get rocks to build walls. I mean, we were doing everything. And so in 2004 we were building. In 2005, in May of 2005, we finally incorporated as a Turtle Conservancy, and that's when we began to move. That in 2005 is when we moved the animals across country.
Wow! And then John Baylor passed away in 2007. Is that correct?
No, I think it was before that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, he never, unfortunately, got to see the animals on site. He was there. He showed up just before we brought animals. He went. We asked him. We flew him out there and asked him to come see what we built. Is this good enough for them? And he came out. He loved it. We had such a good time. I remember having a great time out there with him. And then he just never got to see him out there, unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And the center in Ojai is named after him.
Yes, the actual center is called the Baylor Chelonian Center. Correct.
And you switch that word to turtle for the actual Turtle Conservancy, which I think is a great move, because it's such a simple name that's really recognizable. And now when you look at what the Turtle Conservancy is doing today with their turtle ball, and I mean, absolutely huge in terms of, I don't know the numbers between all the different turtle organizations, and Eric obviously with his reach and connections and everything like that has been able to do incredible things from an outsider's perspective. And then turn it into incredible things like buying land. I think, the Turtle Conservancy has made a really nice,
If I could say anything about the Turtle Conservancy, the most important thing we've done is purchase land. Because when you buy a piece of land, you're not just protecting a turtle on it. You're protecting everything on You're protecting the butterflies, the frogs, the flowers, everything. And in fact, some of the land we've purchased in different places have endangered flowers, endangered butterflies. So we protect everything when you do that. So that is the most important thing we've done, and that's sort of why, again, with the name, we wanted to have a name when we talked about our global reach, something that was more common, like Turtle. Because when people would reach out with Baylor, like, what's Baylor? Who's Baylor? It's always,
Right.
So Turtle Conservancy was a lot easier to do for an international kind of organization.
That's just terrific. So cool. Now, I don't want to change gears because this is so interesting, but we're already 30 minutes in, and I want to try to get to everything. I don't think we'll be able to. I think we could, and we do, right, Maurice? We've had days where we spent the entire day together and just talk the whole time about different things. So we certainly have. And nights where we spend the whole night talking about things too, but not as often anymore. But so you have a very unique set of skills. You design enclosures, but you're just you're unique among turtle people is what I'm trying to say. You have all these skills. You're talking about electrical, and I know you do amazing like zoo quality enclosures with like zoopoxy and everything like that. But you also have, and I'm jumping around now, so forgive me, but you also have a unique interest in turtles as well, where the turtles that get you most excited are the turtles that turtle people don't know exist. Is that fair to say?
Maybe, yeah. I guess I think I do tend to choose some very difficult species for an average person to keep. Not just difficult, but expensive to keep. Because I tend to like weird stuff that get really big and you need unique diets or something like that, or unique filtration systems or habitats. Yeah, I do tend to gravitate to that.
What species right now are you most excited about working with? I'm sure it's going to be one of these oddball species that not many people keep.
Well, I think the most important animal that I work with personally, myself, not including the Turtle Conservancy, is a Trivittata. The female Trivittata, which I've named Ruby because of the precious gem trade in Myanmar is the ruby. Myanmar is known for their rubies, and she's precious to me. So I usually don't name animals. So I have this one female Trivittata that is just amazing. If people follow me on Instagram, it's Chitra Van Dyke, because originally I started it because of the Chitra, and we'll get into that. But she is a potential sixth founder Trivittata, and what does that mean? If you're Liz, what does a sixth founder mean? Well, there was a point when this turtle was so close to extinction, and Gerald Kuchling went out and he surveyed the wild or tried to find wild populations. He went to Temple Ponds in Myanmar and the surrounding areas, and they found 5 females, and those 5 females became the founders to all the animals that are being produced today. Now, luckily, those 5 females, great photo, that's a male. Those 5 females, they've been producing, and they produce hundreds of offspring. But again, they're all from these 5 females, and I have a potential 6th one. And if she becomes becomes gravid and has hatchlings, she would be a 6th founder, and which makes her hugely important for just for if you do the math on or the analysis on the DNA, what that means to have a 6th animal in the population. I mean, it's massive. So she's hugely important to me, and we're trying now to get males from Myanmar, and we just got this amazing email from Myanmar Forestry Department, and they said they're willing to work with us. So we're very excited, and I'm partners. Another thing I need to mention, that turtle I now own, I'm partners with Peter Proshek from Turtle Island, so he's also an owner of that animal, and we're doing this together. He happens to be the Badiger stub bookkeeper, so it makes things a little easier when we want to request animals from Myanmar or possibly Singapore. So it made sense to partner with Peter. And that animal came from Bill McCord, which we'll probably get into at some point here. Which me and Anthony are very fond of Bill, and that animal is one of my favorites. But I do have another.
How could it not be? How could it not be? So amazing. So that's the Burmese roof turtle.
Burmese roof turtle, correct.
And Badiger trivittata.
Correct.
So I always try to throw all those in there just in case, because people may not know what trivittata means. But I mean, how incredible is that? I posed for photos with that turtle before it was yours, and was like just excited to be in the same zip code as it. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
I remember when he bought that turtle on King Snake, because I used to have a routine in the early 2000s. I'd get to work, get to my desk. The first thing I would do is check King Snake. Okay, I know a lot of people do this, and I remember seeing it on there was $1,500, and I was like, oh, I immediately emailed the guy. I said I want it, and by the time he replied, he said it was sold. And of course, Bill McCord bought it. And I remember as soon as I found out he bought it, I emailed Bill and said, Bill, I got to come see that animal. I knew how rare it was. And he let me. I went up there, and I have really cool photos of that turtle when Bill just got it, with Bill holding it. It wasn't a hatchling, but it was a couple years old, maybe like 4 or 5 inches in carapace. And I never forgot it. I've always thought of it every time I went to his house, which was hundreds of times after that. I mean, I go to his house pretty often, and every time I would go see that turtle. There wasn't a single time.
That's amazing. We've spoken about that turtle so many times, and I didn't know that part of the story. I didn't know that about King Snake, and it was part of my routine not as well. But back then, I never would have had the brains to do it. I would, I'd look at King Snake and be like, wow, Chinese golden thread turtles look cool. They're in the budget. Those are really cool looking turtle. I never would have had the wherewithal or the foresight to actually see that and know that was something I should do. But it wouldn't matter anyway, because Bill would have beat me to it too.
But that's pretty cool. To it.
I wonder what his routine was. King Snake every 10 minutes or something. Because I used to check King Snake like 4 times a day. It became like such a habit. Like our cell phones are now. You pick up your cell phone, and then you just have to check like anything in Messenger, and then once you get through Messenger and texts and WhatsApp, then maybe you go to Facebook and just see what updates are going on. But for a long time, it was like, I might check fauna or king snakes 6 times a day, just because I didn't have a busy day, and I just wanted to see if anything else popped up. And I wasn't even buying stuff most of the time.
True. Yeah, I was the same way.
Right? It's crazy. It's crazy. So I guess we have to be nice to our kids when they're on they're on social media a lot, because we did it too.
This is a bit of addiction. People that are really into this, it's like, you can't turn it off. I know I can't. I'm always thinking about turtles. I walk around a mall and I see a pond. I'm like, oh, that'd be good for turtles. Like weird stuff like that.
Everywhere. You said there was another turtle species. What's the other? And I might know, what's the other turtle species?
Yeah. So the other one is the Chitra Van Dyke. So that's a bizarre, turtle. I was fortunate again to be able to buy him from Bill. Interesting story about that is, I don't have a lot of room. I have a small area that I'm keeping them indoors. I try to put everything outdoors, but when I bought them, they were the size of probably a large or Florida soft shell. So if you can picture that in your head, pretty large Florida soft shell. So I said I can handle 4 of those. Not a big deal. But when I got them home and started to really feed them like the way they want to feed, because now I keep live food with them always. When I see it's down to like 5 or 6 fish, I'll put more fish in. I don't wait to go, till they're gone to go get more fish. I get fish before they're gone. So they constantly have food. And these things have grown. I just measured one. It's with Chris Leone the other day. My biggest one is just at 2 feet across now.
Wow.
And they're massive. They're getting massive.
So these are giant. What's the common Van Dyke's narrow-headed softshell?
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't know. I don't know the common names. I'm bad with that. Sorry,
so
guys.
No, I always try, but with the species you keep itself, I was thinking about it before. With the oh my gosh, now I'm gonna forget.
I'm gonna have to Google that one.
Oh, I'm embarrassed. Hold on. Sam wants to know what Maurice's Instagram is. It's Chicha Van Dyke, which is the species that we're talking about right now. That's his handle on Instagram. So make sure you follow him there. Tell your friends.
I do post stuff with these turtles that we're talking about. So there's some fun stuff on there. So it's called the Burmese narrow-headed softshell turtle.
Okay.
But named after Peter Paul Van Dyke, and anyone who knows Peter Paul, he's another one of those guys. You said like nice guys, like Peter Paul. I don't know anyone on the planet that has a bad thing to say about Peter Paul. He's a lovely human being, and he happens to be on the board of the Turtle Conservancy, and we love him. He's great.
Did he used to like manage the collection there or something? I was going to ask. Is it just that he's a board member? Okay.
No, he never managed live animals. No, we've always had Peter Proshag was a curator there once and managed the collection, but not Peter Paul. Peter Paul's always helped us mostly with the land purchase. That's what he's doing mostly with us. He helps us identify land that has critical habitat and critical species, and he speaks Spanish, and he does, so he's helped with the Bolson tortoise. He's helped with a bunch of projects like that.
That's really cool. Yeah. What the heck is the species that eats nuts? I was just talking to you about it. Why can't I remember?
Peltocephalus.
Peltocephalus. Gosh. What's the species name? I could only remember the genus name up until 3 minutes ago.
Peltocephalus dumerilianus. And then it's I think it's called the Amazonian big-headed turtle or something like that.
And that turtle, that's one that you may not realize, but that's one that's very rarely kept. And what are you feeding that turtle?
So it's really an omnivore.
Or that species, because you have a couple of them.
Yeah, I have 6 of them. So it's a really an omnivore. They eat a little bit of everything, pellet food. They'll eat greens, the same greens I feed the trivittata, like dandelion and turnip greens. But they do like nuts, which is bizarre. Apparently in the Amazon they'll eat fallen fruit and fallen nuts from the trees. So I give them cashews and almonds.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's really nuts. Really nuts.
It's really
Pun
nuts.
intended.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Yeah, so they eat a little bit, and they're really docile. They're very, very docile turtles. You can pick them up, like poke their head, put their your finger near their mouth, and they will not bite you, which is odd for a turtle. And they look incredibly similar to Erimnacheles madagascarensis. So you could confuse them easily if you had them side by side. They're that similar. But the madagascarensis is very aggressive compared to that.
So cool. Now, if I want to change gears again just for a second, we'll see where we end up. But before we came on and did the roll-in and everything, we were talking about Tiger King and some other, potential things that are happening. And I know that's not your project, but I know that you work really closely with Eric and everything. So Eric came to, and I want to also just again preface this with Eric's not here, so I'm not going to ask you. If Eric was here, I'd want to ask some real questions about, like, from the standpoint of keepers. Like, I know Mark Cantos asked a really difficult or challenging question at Daytona of Eric, and I know that there was really mixed reviews. Some people said, well, Eric seemed really sincere and really seemed to care, and then other people saying, well, he's that's what he said to Carol Baskin, and they said, he loved turtles, and as a turtle conservationist, I thought he was on our side. So and those people might say, well, this documentary that's coming out with Tom Crutchfield at some point in 2024. I know you mentioned that maybe this ape documentary may trump that for the time being, but people are scared about it. And I think, I don't know, this isn't necessarily a question for you, but I was just wondering, like, your take on that, whatever you'd be willing to share, because again, this is Eric's business, not ours. But
my take on what's the on what he's doing with the documentaries, or
I guess just Yeah, I don't know, because again, I don't want to press too much and be. I don't want to come off as being on either side of the fence. I just think that people have a lot of questions about it and what it might look like. And I mean, we could just wait and see too. But
about of the one that's coming out, you want to kind of so the one I'll give you a little
the reptile one.
The reptile one, I'm going to be very clear. I have not really worked on it. I helped make connections with some people for him to interview. My son might be in it. He did a scene. If some of you read The Stolen World by Jeannie Vaughn, there's a scene where, and it's a true story, when Hank Molt was a notorious reptile dealer. He's in this, the new one. And he had a shop in Philadelphia. And at some point, he got a tip that the feds or the Fish and Wildlife was going to come for him, and he had all these live, exotic, rare animals in his shop in Philadelphia that were illegal. So he knew they were coming. He packed these live animals in his car, drove into the New Jersey Pine Barrens from Philadelphia, dug a hole, and threw these animals in there live and buried them alive.
Oh my gosh!
He was willing to kill these animals. And instead of getting caught, in the end, he got caught anyway, and they went and exhumed these animals. And this is a true story. I'm not making this up. And it just so happens my son was in that scene, digging that trench at night and doing all this stuff. And maybe it comes out in the film or not. But those are the little things that are going to be in this reptile thing, parts of that book. But what I found really interesting about it, from the teaser reels that I've seen, I have not seen the whole thing. I have not seen the final edit. But what I liked about it was showing. It shows like these parallel stories. One is the story told from the dealer or the smuggler's perspective, and then the other side of it is told by the actual the actual Fish and Wildlife agents that were chasing the smugglers. So you have this one story, maybe Hank Molt telling one side of the story, and then you have the actual wildlife agents say, hey, we almost caught him here, or this is what we figured out, and I thought it was really cool, these two stories, and then they obviously collide at some point where the smuggler gets caught, but it was cool. What's cool about this too, everyone who knows anything about reptiles, the biggest or the most notorious dealer ever was Anson Wan, and he agreed to be filmed for this, which is crazy. So they flew out, to I think to Jakarta to meet with him, and so he's going to be in this, which is kind of cool to see Anson Wan and hear his side of things. So, but a lot of people are in there. Tom Crutchfield, Van Nostrum from Strictly Reptiles. There are a lot of characters that you hear about are kind of legends in the reptile world. They're all in this, and they've agreed to be in it, which will be kind of interesting to see how the final edits work. Because you can edit things one way or another, and it's very nuanced. And if you do it the right way, you can look really bad, you can look really good, and we'll see how it comes out.
I'm so torn on it because this is such a. We know that the reptile industry, the industry part of it, it's not always pretty, and it's also crazy to the average person, just like the big cat industry is. So I think for anyone who wants to act surprised that something like this is going to come out, it's going to come out. There are, To Catch a Smuggler, and there's all these different shows on Animal Planet and whatever.
The books are out for a long time.
Right. So it's that story already. I think the fear probably just comes from the fact that Tiger King was so successful. Tiger King was bigger than the Super Bowl. Tiger King was like Stranger Things big, right? That was crazy.
Well, look, it came out at exactly the right time.
I know.
Timing is everything. We were all home locked up from COVID, and what else were you going to do but watch TV?
I know. It's so true. Yeah. So true. That's
very,
crazy though.
Very lucky. And it was good. It was captivating, but the timing was everything there.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good product.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it.
No,
Get it together.
So the reason that I didn't watch it is because similar to just the whole reptile industry, the information is out there. It's public knowledge. If anyone wants to peek into the reptile world, it's pretty easy and accessible. However, if you are out there, not even really reptiles aren't on your radar, it's a whole nother world you don't know exists. And that's kind of how I felt with the zoo world. There's plenty of books that talk about what it's like to be in the zoo field, but then once Tiger King came out, it was enough peeking behind the curtain that you saw maybe some of the stuff. You saw some representatives of the zoo fields that maybe the zoo world is not proud of, and it was just enough to intrigue the general public and maybe not shine us in the best light. And so I do remember when it came out, a lot of people had a lot of questions, and we were, as a zoo field, we were like, no, they do not represent all of us. This is just a small portion of what happens. So I'll be interested to see what kind of light it will shine on the reptile world.
Yeah. But look, I think it's important that this something like this does come out. People need to be aware. Like, I think it helps to see the good and bad of things, and try to push people to do the right thing, like captive bred. If we as a community can, get people or the younger kids that are coming into, because there's no doubt more people are always going to get in. The human population's growing, people are going to get into reptiles no matter what. You're not going to stop it, but guide them in the right direction and keep them from taking things out of the wild, and I've done it. Look, I'm to blame. I've taken animals when I was younger and naive out of the wild, which I shouldn't have. But a lot of the stock we have now breeding, producing these offspring that are for sale came from the wild, unfortunately. But maybe that's a good thing now, and we don't have to put pressure on the wild now that we have these founders. So we should really take care of these founder animals that we have. Really, I mean, they're precious, and we should treat them like they're precious. So we don't have to go into the wild and take more animals out to supply the trade, because the trade's not going to go away. It just won't. So we need to guide people in the right direction, and maybe these films kind of expose some things, good and bad, and people should be aware. I think. I don't know.
That's a really good sentiment. Okay. I think we talked about the chances of the world changing, and that documentary that you were also involved in a different way many years ago. And how, I mean, that's a very negative story. It really is, like I said, gut-wrenching, sickening to watch. But that's somebody who's like us. That's somebody who, in their own mind, is saying, I'm doing this the right way. I'm doing this for very noble reasons. Money's not part of it. I'm going to save the world with my turtle breeding. Like a lot of us like to think on some level.
But that guy, Richard Ogus, turned out to be a nightmare, and
totally,
and very bad for for us. Actually, he's one of the people that just brings a negative light to what we do.
And that to me, and on that level, is scarier, because he actually is one of us. This is different. Like us on here, a lot of us, we're interested in more than just the business or industry side of reptiles or turtles, right? But that was him too, and that's where that's a little scarier. Now, what is scarier on the other side with this one is just that, the potential for this to be really big and to bring this, and the world has chances of the world changing. The world has changed since that documentary came out. It's different now. So things are more scrutinizing. That documentary comes out, nothing changes. Tiger King comes out, which is very popular, and a lot of things changed with Big Cat World and Doc Antle. And Doc Antle's arrested. Joe Exotic's in jail. Carol Baskin's name is not the same. So I think things like that.
Here's a good thing that came out of Tiger King. we were able to raise money, obviously make money and raise money from that. We are now going to put the Turtle Conservancy is going to buy land in southwestern India to protect not only tiger habitat, but guess what turtles on there?
Sylvatica?
Yeah, Sylvatica. So we are buying land to protect
in the western
not only the tigers,
in the Western Ghats.
Yeah. So we're going to protect the tigers and turtles. So that's a positive out of that, that one thing.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you guys really started doing the land purchase, what's it been, about 5 years now that you've really gone heavy into that, or has it been a little longer than that?
No, it's been longer. We from the get-go with Eric, I remember in the very beginning with Eric, when we started in 2005, I would say to him, "Oh, let's start fundraising." And he would always say, "Maurice, we don't have enough to fundraise. Like, I cannot go out and ask people to send money for my collection here or our collection in Ojai." He said that wasn't important enough. Because a lot of people had turtles. I mean, and many more than we did. We just happened to have some cool turtles out in Ojai on his property, but he wanted to get to a point where we could really then ask for money because there was like a noble cause or something really profound behind it. And it wasn't until we purchased Mexico that he finally said, "Okay, let's go full out. Okay. Let's start raising money."
Yeah.
And that's when Leonardo DiCaprio stepped up.
Right.
He gave us $1 million to buy the land in Mexico. So we raised some serious money once we started to do the land purchase.
Yeah.
Right. Only Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah.
That's it.
So when was the Mexico land? When was the Mexico land purchase?
Oh, I'd have to look, man. That's a good question.
Okay.
I would say.
And this is that Cuatro Ciénegas?
No, we are. Oh, that's good. I'm not going to get too into it because I don't want to jinx it, but we are also in the process of purchasing land in Cuatro Ciénegas for the quail and box turtle with a beautiful spring that you can snorkel in. We're in the middle of that, but it's not done, so I'm not going to jinx it. But the Bolson tortoise is just to the west of that area of Cuatro Ciénegas. It's called the Zona de Silencio, and it's a beautiful area of Mexico. It's but a desert, really not much water at all. Our property happens to have a pond in it. If you go on YouTube, there's a video. You can see me in this pond looking for mud turtles, which we find. But we're focusing on places like Mexico, South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's probably the thing you guys are doing that I'm like most excited about it in general, because I feel like all the land purchase stuff is something you guys can do that a lot of other people just don't have the resources to help make happen. Exactly. And so really
Oops.
Well, there you go. Well, he's right. I mean, his point is right, and that's back to my point. And Eric was very wise with this, because again, right away I was like, "Hey, let's just go ask people for money. They'll send us money. We'll support the turtle." He didn't need the money to support the turtles in Ojai. His vision, he was already beyond that. He was thinking much bigger, and it's true. Once you go out there and say, "Hey, look, we're going to buy," like in Mexico, we bought 18,000 acres. I mean, that's bigger than the island of Manhattan. Okay, if you put it in perspective, and then you can go to people and say, "Look, we're protecting this huge piece of property, and it's got tortoises, it's got jaguar, it's got endangered flowers, endangered frogs." Then you can really motivate people to give you money, and which they did, and we were able to buy that land with a lot of help.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. So cool. And that's something we look at too, like that we've struggled with as we try to work through our own identity and how we put ourselves out there. Like we have in situ programs, we have ex situ programs, then we have educational programs. Those are the three big things for us. And a lot of times the captive programs end up being out there more. And I see that with Turtle Conservancy too, because in my mind, most of the work you do is this land that you own and oversee. But if you look at the photos, it's like, oh, we hatched these Japonica. So we hatched this Yuanawai, the Sulawesi forest turtle. So those things end up coming through. Maybe that's just what I end up seeing in my feed. Mm-hmm. But there's that challenge of like, here's the real work that we're doing, but then here's like the post that gets a lot of views, which is here's the hatchling turtle that we produced. You know, but you don't want people to think that that's what you are. Because I think there are probably people out there that think the Turtle Conservancy has this Baylor Center, but doesn't realize how much you do in actual natural habitats.
And hopefully with our new center that we're developing, I don't know if you want to get into segue into that, but I was just in California for like 8 days. We have semi-annual board meetings, and we're in the process of building a new turtle center. So the Turtle Conservancy, when we started in 2004 building, it was on 1.2 acres on this little part of Ojai. And over the years, Eric has purchased, whenever a neighbor, sold a piece of property, he would buy that neighboring property. And so the center kept growing and growing. And then recently, in the last few years, some giant pieces of property became available, and now we're up to, from 1.2, we're up to 93 acres, which is big for Ojai. Yeah, so we have all this land, 93 acres, and there and the new land that we bought have a lot of orchards, like orange orchards or avocados, and that's very common in Ojai. So it's not, so our plan is to remove some of those trees, and we can actually remove them without killing them and transplanting them. So we're going to remove some of those trees from this one property that we bought and create a new center that's maybe, I'd say, close to 10 acres, from 1.2 to 10. So it's, it's a 10x almost. And on this new 10 acres, we're also going to be building the Pritchard Museum. So for those of you that don't know, the Turtle Conservancy purchased the Pritchard collection when when Peter Pritchard passed. We purchased it from his family, Sybil Pritchard, his sons, and it's over 15,000 specimens. Either shells and skeletal remains, or animals that are in liquids, formaldehyde or alcohol, and also all the media, all the books, all the magazines, all the references. So we purchased that collection with the intent to build a museum to honor that collection. This museum, I tell you, if once it's done, you must go. If you're a turtle person and don't go out to Ojai to see it, you're insane, because it's going to be over the top. Because everything Eric does, if you've seen his hotels in New York, or he everything he designs is just beautifully done. I have to say, I'm a big fan of his design, his designs, the way, just everything he does, when it comes to design, and he's an artist at heart. He moved to New York to go to art school, and just never finished art school, but he's really an artist. And becoming, a designer of hotels and restaurants, it's an art. And so this museum is going to be incredibly beautiful, because he's also going to tap into his art, his friends in the art world. If you read about Eric, he was very close with Andy Warhol and Jean-Michel Basquiat. His sister dated Basquiat for many years. Kenny Scharf, Julian Schnabel, all these famous contemporary artists. So they're going to help him and give him ideas or whatever to build and curate this museum. Wow. So it's going to be something like we've never seen before, I believe. And it's going to be awesome. And then once the museum is done, or in parallel with the museum, we're also going to transfer the live collection from the old site to this new site. So the experience will be, you get to this museum, you go through the museum. Once you exit the museum, you'll go through a live collection, and there'll be a series of greenhouses for you to see different species, and then a bunch of stuff that can live outdoors in Ojai will be outdoors, and it will be designed like a botanical garden. That's another thing we do very well. If anyone who's been to Ojai, it's really the plant life is insane. I think I sent you a photo myself with the unifera, right, for this podcast.
Yes.
If you notice the plant life behind me, the cacti, that's another thing Eric's really into, and myself too. We always said we were going to build a botanical garden and sprinkle in some turtles and tortoises into that garden. So
that's
and that's
amazing.
what it looks like. It's going to be out of this world. So
as a turtle keeper, that's when you know you're doing it right. When somebody comes over and thinks, "Oh wow, this is some kind of growth," if they think you're growing some kind of plant maybe you shouldn't be in your basement,
yeah,
or if they see the plants first and
yeah,
then see the animals, you know you're doing it right.
yeah.
So,
Or
yeah,
another thing is when you build enclosures with the right plant life, the right soils, and turtles are laying eggs and they're hatching in those enclosures without incubators. That's another
right.
indicator. And we do that. We breed Homopus areolatus that way. We walk in sometimes and there's a
No
little
big deal.
baby walking around. You're like, what? So that's when you know you're doing it right.
That is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what is the timeline for this new museum then?
So I was just out there at the board meeting, and we're in the design phase, and we're pretty far along. Like we have serious architectural drawings. We've hired an architectural firm to work on the building itself, and we have a whole team out there designing, the property, the fencing. We have to make it, predator proof. All these everything, every little nuance you can imagine, and we want to obviously improve from all the problems we've had at TC 1.0. We want to make sure the second iteration is like perfect. So we have pretty much everyone working on it and just giving advice and figure out. And I'll be working, I think, a lot on the filtration. So all the filtration at the new place, I know I'll get involved with. And just a bunch of little design stuff that little nuanced things that from doing this for almost 50 years that you kind of figure out.
So we had a question from Steve Baker. How do you protect 1,800 acres from poachers?
Oh, okay. So where we are in Mexico, first of all, no one wants to go there. It's called Zona del Silencio, which means zone of silence, because it's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, and it's really bleak. So you really don't have people going there first of all, and you could see, and if someone would drive up the road, you could see them from a mile away, because the dust alone that you kick up from a car just coming to the property, you can see it from. So it's just we're kind of lucky there because it's very low population, just human population, and a very remote place. So we're not having a lot of problems with poachers for this species in this property. It's not really the biggest issue. The issue on this property to protect this tortoise is really because it's so bleak there, any available land that has this buffalo grass, this grass that the tortoise eats, they're using for cattle. So they're trying to take their cattle and graze on everything so they can raise cattle, they can feed themselves, which is understandable. It's a very poor area, and if you need to feed your kids, the kids are going to come before the tortoises for sure. So our biggest problem with this property is just keeping the cattle off it, because they eat the same grass that the tortoise does, so they can outcompete them, and they're also so big they can crush hatchlings. Like if a cow were to step on a hatchling Bolson tortoise, it'll annihilate it. So we're building the big problem here is building a fence, and it's taken years to get that done, because when you go into a place as an organization, and you say, oh, and it's always been available for them to graze, and you tell them, hey, we're going to put a fence here now. So the neighbors that have cattle, we have to negotiate, even though it's our land, we bought it, and we have surveys that show this is our property line. We still have to kind of be nice neighbors and say, look, we're going to close this side of the property this year, put a fence, and next year we're going to do this side. So it's been a negotiation with neighbors, because they think they own it. They think they still have rights to it. And that's been a problem, but we're kind of negotiating around that.
think that's the part of it you don't even think about, is just playing nice with neighbors.
Yeah. In America, sure, you can, lawyer up and put a big fence around your property, but you're talking about a very remote area where we're not there constantly. If we're not nice, they'll just come and remove the fence overnight. Like they'll take a tractor and just run over your fence,
tear it down,
and it's gone. So we've been very, very nice, and working with them, and also offering locals work. That's important. Like it's not us there building the fence. We hired local people. We have a local guy managing it, so it helps to involve the local people. If you come in as a white guy from America, hey, I'm doing this, and listen to me, this is the right way, it's not going to work. It doesn't work anywhere, and any conservationist will tell you gotta involve the locals. Good examples in Burma, Kaliar, which is a force of nature. She's a Burmese woman working on the tortoises there, and she gets a lot done because she is from Burma, and people respect that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every situation is multifaceted and unique, right? Depending on where you are and what the situation is.
Exactly.
That's so wild. But we have to actually rein this in and end this episode soon, which is crazy. That's what I'm saying.
This isn't an all-nighter. I'm in my pajamas.
Yeah.
Me too. I work from home, so I'm not wearing any pants. Yeah. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I look. It's like turtle people. We could talk forever, honestly.
Forever, and we do all the time. But every time we are together, I just mentioned we were together 8 days ago. But every time we're together, the conversation's different. We're just not talking about the same thing over and over again. There's always something to talk about, and so much of that is just the fact that you're an absolute wealth of knowledge. And I don't know what to end this with, because there's still many things. I know Chris asked, this has been so good. Part 2 tomorrow. I'm down.
Yes, Chris.
We should have you back though, Maurice, for sure.
Can I do a shameless plug here?
Yeah,
I would love that. I was going to ask you if there was anything you wanted to say.
Yeah. People that are watching, if you could, go over to the turtleconservancy.org. Sign up to the newsletter. We do an email newsletter. You guys do, like the Turtle Room does. You guys do a great one. So sign up to our newsletter. Possibly buy a magazine. We do the Tortoise magazine, which is pretty neat. It's not very scientific, but it's artsy. It's cool. It's
great. It's that's where my mind went when you talked about Eric being an artist, but also everything he does like that publication is so well done. It's a beautiful.
It's different. It's very different than anything that's out there. So people that are listening that don't know about it, they should probably pick up a Tortoise magazine.
I think I'm a couple years behind now. I need to get a couple of them.
Okay.
I know I'm a bad person, but I have to have them all. I have to have all the Battagers and all the TSA magazines, and of course all the Tortoise magazines as well. Yeah. What else? Is there anything you want to end with, or anything that you want anybody to know while you have the floor here?
I guess I don't know.
That's a weird one.
Look out for that the reptile movie that Eric's doing. It's coming out on HBO also sometime in 2024. Check out our website and support if you can. Support. There are a lot of good turtle organizations, not just us. The Turtle Survival Alliance, the Turtle Room, doing a lot of great things. Support turtles, support conservation. That's what I would have to say.
We have a comment too that we want an episode just on filtration. I'm on board with that too. Yeah,
he could do.
I'd love to talk about it. Yeah. I'm working soon. I'll be doing a job at the Philadelphia Zoo, redoing all the aquatic filtration on their reptile habitats. So, I'd love to get into a filtration stuff. Yeah.
They've probably got some weird stuff going on there, because that's America's oldest zoo. And I got a little bit behind the scenes, I think, there. And it was kind of crazy. And then doesn't that movie Split take place, or at least it's supposed to take place, at the Philadelphia Zoo?
Oh, I don't know. I got to look into that.
Yeah. Split, the one where the guy has, like the personality disorder, and he's got like a girl captive. It's like part of the Unbreakable trilogy with Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis.
Okay.
And there's one.
Look at that.
You know the movie. You know
probably
the movie.
know
you
it.
saw
I
you would
can't
know.
remember it. Yeah.
It was big like 5-6 years ago.
Gotcha.
Maybe 7-8 years ago. But anyway, at the end of the movie, the girl gets away and you find out that she's been like held captive in this weird boiler room in like the basement of the Philadelphia Zoo the whole time.
Oh, cool.
She like gets out and there's like the catwalk with like literally the cat. I don't know if it's a jaguar or whatever walking across. And I remember seeing it and I had just been at the Philly Zoo like a few weeks prior. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the Philly Zoo. I was just right there. Anyway.
Yeah, cool.
It's an old zoo.
But I haven't gotten a job yet, but I'm hopefully doing that at some point.
Fingers crossed.
But I did do all the work at the reptile house at the Bronx Zoo. That's where when I was an intern. So I did a bunch of stuff there. All the aquatic filters there, I did there. So.
Are you building filters? Or are you incorporating filters that you're buying?
I do build some, especially like the wet dry sumps. But I also incorporate commercial filters that are out there, and yeah, it depends. It's unique. It depends on what species you're doing, how big the exhibit is, how much space you have for a filter. There are a lot of factors, and then I'll figure out how to build it.
It's so cool. Let's have Maurice on every month for the next year.
Yeah,
that'll be easier for everyone except Maurice. Yeah. That would be great. This episode was so simple to navigate just because you're so wonderful. But the challenge obviously is how do we figure out what to cram into an hour plus, because we could fill 12 hours easily. So before we just start falling asleep. Yeah. But thank you, Maurice, not only for joining us, but just for being such a wonderful pillar of this community. And a person that, everyone can look up to and try to emulate in everything that we do.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. Thank you.
Yep. All right, we have one more thing from Steve.
The calendar.
Steve's muted.
By the calendar.
By the calendar. Steve, you're muted. I can't hear you.
There we go.
Yep.
By the calendar. Some of the proceeds this year are going to the Ontario Turtle Conservation Center. They do a lot of great work in Canada for Canada's native species. Obviously, proceeds go to the Turtle Room as well, and nice calendar as always. So hop over there. It does say that they're on back order, but that's because they just came in right after Thanksgiving, and I've been shipping out all the pre-orders. So that's kind of there to let people know that just because you place an order today doesn't mean it's going to get out tomorrow, because I've been shipping out 100 pre-orders. So anyway, hop on there, get that calendar, and support turtle conservation. Maurice, thanks so much, man. Love having you on.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks,
guys.
Such a pleasure. Love you.
All right. Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.